Blessings everyone. In this video, I'm actually going to be taking on a topic that has, from my observation, only created sickness in our society, whether you want to call it the spiritual society, you want to talk about just society at large, our relationships, jobs, anything to do with how we actually interact, feel about ourselves, and establish meaningful relationships and establish a meaningful life of productivity and creativity. Worthiness versus unworthiness. And in a lot of ways, the term worthiness has been weaponized by people that ultimately are trying to either get followers or get attention or extract something from another person. There's a lot of distortion around what we call worthiness and what we might consider to deem a person worthy of whatever, whether it's a person being worthy of love or worthy of comfort, worthy of peace, worthy of success, worthy of attention, worthy of friends. The thing about worthiness that I've noticed is that when people feel worthy or people feel unworthy, it's all subjective. It's all about what worth is determined by the parameters of a certain set of programming. Now, it's a big word that gets thrown around a lot. Actually, it's not a big word. It's just a loaded small word. But when you think about a subjective set of specific parameters and programming, if you feel unworthy of something, maybe zooming out and reconsidering exactly what you are basing your comparison on can help you to dull a little bit of that ache, a little bit of that pain, a little bit of that sting. Because that sting and that pain itself may be something that you were trained to feel in the first place. When we talk about programming and conditioning, now we're getting into, the topics of whether it's societal conditioning through, media, education, religion, maybe family programming, things that may have been passed down like a generational curse from parent to grandparent to child, things that maybe are coming through peer pressure. But when we think about the idea of worthiness, well, all of those parameters, because it's so subjective to each agreement, each thought formed, then it's not necessarily something that could be considered true. What deems a person worthy, what deems a person not worthy. And I was actually motivated to create this video because I've been in a lot of talks lately, especially when it comes to people I meet online, clients, and even friends of mine who have been dealing with this deep, pervasive obsession with finally feeling worthy or getting over the wound that may have actually been inflicted by a chronic feeling of unworthiness. Again, whether it's coming from their family, a parent, or in a lot of recent cases, ex-partners, ex-spouses. One of the situations has to do with a friend of mine who actually was going through a divorce. And his ex-wife was so wounded and so distorted and discordant in her own behavior that she would actually use worthiness as a bit of a cudgel or a bludgeon to try and enforce compliance from him so that he would manufacture the expressions and the experience that she desired. And that, of course, is just absolutely toxic. That is a form of abuse. That is a form of harassment. And I told him that. He internalized that feeling of unworthiness, and he began to start projecting and equating it to aspects of himself that had nothing to do with the relationship with the chemistry or the psychology that was going on in his interactions with her, as well as looking for ways to acquire or accumulate worthiness or value as a person in a way that became very iconographic. He was ultimately trying to study what other people found worthy, or what was deemed worthy by societal standards or by relationship standards, by different personalities and all of that, and was essentially trying to create this amalgam of a worthy shell to step into, which actually ended up creating more harm and creating more self-doubt and creating more anxiety and insecurity. At some point, he ended up becoming so addicted to faking it to the point where dropping the act created so much anxiety and so much fear that he could barely function when it was time to have all the armor come off, be vulnerable, and really be intimate with people, really form a connection. And I see a lot of that toxicity and that distortion, as it got more and more popular online. You can see it. You can see it on YouTube. You can see it on TikTok and on Instagram. Even in the spiritual community, the tarot community, the astrology community, everybody kind of coming in with their little bits of wounded 2 cents about how people can be more worthy. But if we take the veil away from what they're actually saying, you can see this toxic, wounded persona giving instructions for appeasement. And appeasement is not worthiness. Appeasement is just what it is. So you have all of these competing ideas, all of these competing mentalities, and all of these wounded people creating their own programming, right? We have these sort of traumatized love gurus basically projecting their own woundedness, their own untreated issues into all of their teachings, all of their demands, all of their expectations. And the interesting thing is they're not actually doing it to accumulate or teach a lesson to those that are not appeasing them. No, they're actually amassing those that are unhappy, those that are hurt or traumatized or damaged like them, and feeding off of them, extracting from them, whether it's money, it's energy, it's time, it's attention. The way that we can actually take a step back and reform a bit of our mentality around worthiness and not be prey to that kind of parasitic behavior? Well, very much. And it's not just the love gurus, by the way. Any of that guru mentality, that I will give you affirmation and you give me energy. You give me money. You give me attention. You propagate my name. I will give you affirmation, you poor unworthy soul, or you poor worthy soul who hasn't found anyone worthy yet. Let's talk about it together. It's like a high-priced venting clinic, a high-priced ranting forum that only those who are really just so hurt and so desperate to feel affirmed and validated would pay to join. We've got to take a step out of that. Worthiness itself, honestly, because it's so subjective, it might be something we need to actually toss as an idea. When it comes to manifesting, when it comes to the spiritual practice and the spiritual process itself, and creating the reality experience you want to have, manifesting the wealth, the health, the love, the comfort. It's important to remember that that is all alchemy. That is all energy at work. Alchemy is about science. It is about mechanics. It is about dynamics. It is completely neutral. It has nothing to do with worthiness. It has nothing to do with appeasement. It has nothing to do with judgment. And when we look at it from an alchemical perspective, everybody is already worthy. Everybody is just set up with a different set of tools, vibrations, and surroundings that they are learning how to work, change, amplify, dissolve, expand. As I've said a lot on this channel, as well as on a few posts on my Instagram and on Facebook, you're not here to learn how to manifest. You're here to learn how to take responsibility for the reality that you're in, that you're already creating, that you're already co-creating, and create with a sense of discipline and live life as an art. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, if it doesn't work based on worth, then what do we use as a term when we are qualifying the experience that we are having? How do we qualify what we are experiencing if it's not about somebody being deemed worthy or not being deemed worthy? Well, let's bring in a different term for one. Let's chuck worthiness out the window, okay? You don't have to heal from feeling unworthy. You need to heal from having worthiness programming in your being in the first place. That's all. You don't have to heal from feeling unworthy if you actually heal from the worthiness program. So work on that. Definitely pull that apart. Maybe consider replacing your qualification evaluation with something different. I like the term eligibility much better, because eligibility is how we determine what is going on with how we qualify what is going on in our reality experience, how we qualify the light, how we qualify the energy, how we qualify the interactions, how we qualify the work, how we qualify the energy and effort that goes into all of it. When I think about my friend in the earlier example, I think of, okay, his ex-wife, beat him down. You're an unworthy partner. You're an unworthy husband. You're, not appeasing me. You're not making me happy. In essence, parentifying him. And then I would always ask myself, okay, well, what makes her worthy? Now, what made her worthy in her mind didn't really make any sense. She just was, because it was according to a program and a set of preconditioned parameters set up most likely through her upbringing and, again, social imprints, family imprints, and things like that. And then I asked him, after the divorce was over and he was working on going through the recovery phase of being with somebody like that and subjected to it over and over and over again, I said, okay, hey, look, let's talk about eligibility instead. When we think about eligibility, we are working with not just the law of attraction. We are using the entire breadth of the universal laws, including law of correspondence, law of vibration, right? Law of vibration, the quality of the light and the energy and the space that you keep co-creates the reality that you are a part of, which includes how you keep your space, how you interact, what you allow, what you introduce into your reality, where you are socializing, the energy that you're taking on from other people, the energy you choose to hold from other people. We also work with the law of correspondence, right? Different energies that correspond to different experiences fortify, amplify, and of course, refine our intentions in order to bring them about, bring them forth into being. So when we think about an experience one wants to have or one does not want to have anymore, we can look at that experience and go, okay, is that an experience that is eligible to be here? And am I holding a space, qualifying my reality, and living as one experience that is eligible to have that experience based on neutral parameters, no judgment, no worthiness programming, no value judgments whatsoever. So then I would, ask him to look at what the intentions for the marriage in the household were. And I would ask him to do it for himself and to also just level the playing field, do a little eval when it comes to what's happening, with her or what happened with her. And so I would say, okay, you guys wanted a peaceful, loving home. Let's just make it very basic here. Okay. To be eligible for a peaceful, loving home, one must know how to not only be a peaceful, loving person consistently, but also embody and qualify that into their experience, right? The vast majority of your experience needs to match the experience you want to have. Now, in his case, it wasn't necessarily peaceful and loving because he was in a constant state of anxiety. He was depressed. He was beaten down. And so, of course, that created its own different experience from the one that he wanted. She was ineligible to have a peaceful, loving home and marriage because she was volatile, right? She didn't even want to be an equal partner. She was really looking to play out a parent-child relationship with my friend. It's not a judgment. It's just the alchemy saying, look, this isn't what it is. If you want bread to rise, there has to be some kind of rising agent in it. You cannot make bread rise without something that is actually going to create the gaseous experience, whether it's from yeast or from baking powder or whatever, that is actually going to lift the bread. It's not about judging him as good or bad a husband or her as good or bad a wife. It's just the fact that it wasn't there. It was what it was and it wasn't what it wasn't. So when we think back to a situation where one might be obsessed with worthiness, right? The ability to appease a set of parameters put upon them by another for a sense of adequacy, or a sense of worth and value. Maybe the person obsessing over worthiness or making people feel worthy or unworthy, or making somebody feel like they need to be more worthy of them, is using that as a bit of a shield, right? The alchemical examination of eligibility instead of worthiness might show some disqualifications that are completely neutral that would be too difficult to accept. And so one would focus on being worthy instead of being an eligible match for that experience, one who vibrates a complementary energy, a complementary frequency for that experience. If you do not know how, or you are not doing the work, you might be tempted to focus on worthiness as a shield, as an alternative. Worthiness is a poor person's eligibility. Kind of like how some people focus on what is technically correct while missing the point of what is in the highest interest of all concerned. That over-rationalizing or that cognitive debate, that cognitive gymnastics one can do to protect the ego or to protect one's agenda. If a person is self-aware that they are ineligible based on their thoughts, actions, deeds, and conduct, well, then projecting concepts of worthiness and unworthiness onto others tells you everything you need to know about the state that person is in or propagating. And if we take that example and apply that to our own lives, we can, of course, look and see, okay, it's not about worthiness. You don't need to heal any kind of unworthiness. You need to heal from the worthiness programming that you have had. because it's never been about that. And this may take you through a little bit every once in a while, right? This might challenge you because all of a sudden, whether it's your inner critic, the little loop tape that sometimes people can have in their heads about their teachings, whether it was, a teacher themselves, an author, mom, dad, grandpa, your friends, the guys, the girls, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to pay attention to the fact that alchemy works in a very different way, in a very non-judgmental way. And if you're truly dedicated to the path, whether it's a path to personal mastery, spiritual mastery, personal development, or alchemy, that is one of the big things you have to let go of. We are all worthy and we are all exempt from unworthiness because all of it doesn't apply. Because none of it actually applies to the real experience. Just something you may want to focus on deprogramming yourself from. So that's all I had for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, or you think this might actually help somebody, please like, share, and subscribe. Engagement really helps my channel. And feel free to browse. Look around. I've got all kinds of stuff here on YouTube that may help you to expand into a different way of looking at the way we actually operate in our mastery and what that looks like and what we are here actually doing and how worthiness or unworthiness in the biggest picture, in the true picture, has nothing to do with any of it. You all take care. I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day, and I will see you all again soon.